Owen just smiles, no big deal. He hands her a custom carrier bought with the Baroness's money, explaining this should stop any more accidents from happening. Tyr calls him her hero for life. Our boy just laughs it off, saying she can always call him. Meanwhile, the Mander sulks in pure jealousy as Pop gets all the love. Owen offers Tyr a job, which she happily takes, but then the mood shifts fast. Pop suddenly tries to swallow the Mander whole, sending everyone into a total state of panic. After wrestling him back into his cage, our boy warns Tyr not to bring Pop along when she starts work. Turning to Adrian, our boy hands over his cut. Adrian is shocked by the amount. But Ajin quickly explains that food and lodging fees apply, leaving him with exactly 312 silver pieces. Adrian is absolutely livid. He grabs our guy by the collar, screaming that he is nothing but a total con artist. Selena steps in, pointing out the treatment actually worked. Instantly, Adrian's entire mood flips. He starts praising her skills, thanking her for the amazing recovery he felt after taking the medicine. Selena offers another prescription to keep him healthy, and he accepts it with a big, fake smile. Once Adrian leaves, Selena wonders if letting him walk away was actually a smart move. Our main character admits Adrian is a solid doctor, and they actually work pretty well together. Even so, he brushes off the idea of recruiting her for now. Selena calls out his insane greed and predicts Ajin will seriously regret this decision very soon. Prince Theo sips his tea, listening as rumors of the hunting competition swirl. Meanwhile, Baron Doyle is on his knees, apologizing. He explains he's been hunting for a chance to grab the monoceros, but that hospital is never empty. Theo hates half measures. He demands a bolder plan to parade the monoceros in front of everyone and seize true power with it. He warns the Baron that another failure will leave him in a very dangerous spot. Suddenly, chaos breaks out. The Baron's pet, Magma, gets restless at dinner time and lunges for a dish of chickpeas from a servant. The wolf devours them. Theo explodes in rage while the Baron bows low, desperately promising to make things right. He promises tenfold amends to appease the prince. Meanwhile, back at Ajin's clinic, a surgical patient is recovering. The staff warns owners that accidents happen when pets wake from anesthesia, so they need to watch closely. Tyr returns, looking really worried about Pop's younger sibling. Little Chep is lethargic and coughing. Ajin finds a mild cold and muscle weakness. He prescribes daily medicine and tells them to be careful. But Tyr comes back the next day. No improvement. Even worse, her dog has fallen sick too. Not long after that, our boy spots the same symptoms across different species. He decides to hospitalize them to stop the spread. Within days, it happens again. Animals from all over show up with the exact same symptoms. He realizes this isn't just a simple cold. He urgently tells owners to cover their noses and mouths immediately. They need to stop touching things after handling sick pets and start wearing gloves right now. He moves the sick animals to the second floor while keeping the healthy ones on the first. Even though symptoms are mild, the medicine isn't working. This disease is hitting every species it touches. Selena warns that if this keeps up, the outbreak is going to spread everywhere. She was right. The clinic is soon overflowing with desperate owners begging for help, forced to turn people away. Our guy watches as every hospital nearby hits its absolute limit. Lord Baron arrives panicking over his indoor pet, Elizabeth. He is convinced she should not be sick at all. But a new turtle they just got is likely the secret carrier. The Baron asks about empty properties nearby, and a vacant building in the alley becomes a temporary clinic. Next, seeing how big this crisis is, our boy accepts the loan, and suddenly, he is running 2 facilities all by himself. He is juggling patients at both sites, wondering how on earth he will survive without another doctor. Back at Adrian's hospital, he notices an empty ward and asks why there aren't any patients. Meanwhile, his assistant drops the bombshell. A massive plague is spreading, and they'll be called soon. Soon after, a letter arrives from Ajin, officially begging for their help. They need meds and gear. offering 2 gold an hour plus a potential performance bonus. Adrian hates the arrogant tone. He's ready to toss the whole letter into the fire. But then he sees a single line. Selena has collapsed from sheer exhaustion. His conscience wins out. Adrian announces he's leaving until the war against the pandemic is won. Wherever disaster strikes, a doctor must go. His assistant goes quiet, feeling the true weight of that heavy decision. The first plague wave sweeps across the land. Pio rounds everyone up inside the clinic to announce strict isolation rules immediately. Any animal with symptoms gets quarantined. No one goes out unless they absolutely have to. When did the coughing start? Questions keep coming as the medical records pile high. 12 hours in, and Adrian is still checking patients without a single break. He's seeing swollen throats everywhere, but some aren't actually the plague. Selena is buried in 26 hours of testing, while our guy treats a weak rabbit after 18 hours straight. He finishes the checkup gently, even though the whole staff is running on fumes. Schwinn arrives with Max. He reports that 2 more hunting dogs are sick right before the big competition. The ward is totally overflowing. Tyr tells our boy there's just no room left. Still, Ajin insists on finding space while hunting for a cure, promising everyone they'll do their best. Schwinn is grateful, but Adrian wonders why they're taking in more than they can handle. He answers with his actions. He simply won't turn a single patient away. Pio reports that some owners want to leave, thinking a minor cough is harmless. Ajin shuts that down. Neglecting this now could lead to irreversible damage later. Especially for hunting dogs. If they lose their value, they'll just be abandoned. He truly believes every animal deserves care, regardless of how useful they are. Deep into the night, our boy tries infusing antibiotics with dragon power, but every single attempt fails. Selena warns him to stop before overusing that dragon energy wrecks his heart. He blames the mana instability and starts considering alternative medicine instead. Selena points out he hasn't slept in 3 days, then knocks him out cold. 5 hours later, Ajin wakes up in a daze while Tyr feeds him. He realizes the egg is from Pop, the chicken who's totally plague-free. Tyr mentions that both Pop and Sonya are doing fine, despite the exposure. Suddenly, he connects the dots, running through every possible trait they share. Diet, blood type, temperament, until his eyes finally lock onto Sonya. She's being spat on by the Mander, just like Pop was. That's it. That's why they didn't get sick. He quickly mixes Mander saliva with a sample from an infected animal. Ajin watches the gray leaves turn green. The cure is officially confirmed. The clinic explodes with joy as the team praises the Mander for saving everyone. Now they just have to figure out mass production. The team debates methods. Pressing, diluting, anything could work. Selena whips up a nutrient drink with a diuretic kick. The creature gulps it, leaves literally dripping with excess saliva. Ajin is amazed at how fast they can collect the essence and synthesize the medicine. By morning, the sickness breaks and Max finally recovers his strength. Our main character feels a massive weight lift. But just as he finishes, heavy thuds shake the clinic door. The Baron is here, and he demands an immediate arrest. He arrives at the clinic with his soldiers. A crowd gathers, and you can feel the tension as Ajin opens the door. He meets the Baron's gaze as he is accused of spreading the plague for profit. Ajin's face hardens, recalling the white lie he once told. He points to a fading mark as his proof. Ajin realizes the arrest is just a cover for the Baron to seize the cat. Pio steps up, but the Baron dismisses him. Ajin agrees to go, but only after sedating the cat first. The Baron hesitates, then lets him. He signals Selena to prep an escape, but she misunderstands and readies for a fight. Once the cat is safely caged, a faint light flickers from his ring. Selena doesn't use magic, she just decks one of the guards instead. She grabs the cat and vanishes, forcing the Baron to choose between the pet or Ajin. His suspicions are finally confirmed. The Baron grabs him, threatening absolute destruction. But Pio steps up, refusing to let the clinic be damaged. Adrian steps in, and the Baron is forced to retreat. As they take him away, Ajin entrusts the clinic to his friends, praying that Selina keeps the cat safe. Rumors fly through the city like a wildfire. The hero of the Monoxus fight is now a villain. Stick with me, because a massive public trial is now being announced. Locked up, Ajin waits for the Baron and his wolves. The Baron demands the location of the elf. Ajin stays silent and relieved. They got away, now the Baron threatens him with violence. But Ajin notices the wolf, Magma, is in serious pain. He sees blood in the urine and clear exhaustion. It is a severe hernia. Surgery is needed, right now. Outside, Selina hides with the restless cat. She holds on tight. She knows our hero is still safe. Ajin orders the wolf moved for emergency surgery. He preps the tools and medicine. Absolute authority as the procedure begins. Anesthesia is set, the operation starts now. The Baron stands by, watching nervously as a servant hands over protective gear to keep things sterile. During the operation, Owen takes full command, constantly calling for temperature checks. He tracks every dose of anesthesia while making sure every tool is perfectly sterilized. Tension rises for the Baron, still unsure if he can trust Owen, stepping outside. He questions everything until he remembers Magma's mother, who died showing those exact same symptoms. Looking at her portrait, it finally clicks. She suffered from this very same illness. Meanwhile, in the Baron's office, a mountain of petitions demanding Owen's release starts to grow. There is even a letter from Lady Marin Astrid's family, threatening to tell the king everything unless our boy is freed immediately. Even the servants are vocal, clearly alarmed by the mounting backlash. The surgery is a success. The Baron finds his companion breathing steadily, while Owen calmly lays out the recovery plan. 1 week of medication, followed by a later appointment to remove the stitches. Finally, exhaustion finally hits our boy, and he collapses onto a sofa after days of non-stop work. Noticing the raw marks from the handcuffs on Owen's wrists, the Baron orders them removed for good. Back in his cell, Owen drifts off into a deep dream. He is back home, surrounded by warmth, hearing the faint echoes of his parents' voices. His mother is worried again, certain that his clinic must be struggling. Meanwhile, his father sighs over how stubborn he is. He remembers Owen rejecting medical school just to become a veterinarian. He wonders what's so noble about helping animals, but in the dream, Owen only feels peace. A strange creature appears, looking like a mix of a cat and lion, warm and comforting. Somewhere else, Theo is confronting the Baron about the missing monoceros. The Baron explains it was taken by the Athathurian Order, revealing Selina was their secret agent. New reports confirm she was working with some very suspicious elven groups. Theo snaps, furious at the Baron for his sheer incompetence. The Baron apologizes and then asks if it is finally time to release Owen. He mentions the endless complaints from both nobles and regular people. Theo is tired of this and lets the Baron decide. Back at the mansion, our boy is finally free. Before leaving, he tells the servants to bring Magma back in 3 days and hands over a list of instructions. One servant mentions they have a hunting dog suffering from bad knees. Owen agrees to check it out later. Walking outside, he finds his friends waiting right at the gate. He is shocked to find out they were actually ready to storm the castle if he had been held any longer. Moments later, he thanks them, and suddenly Mander and Pop rush forward, pulling him into a massive, happy hug. Selina stands nearby, safe and smiling, while she holds Shaija close. Our boy thinks back to his dream and that creature that felt just like her. It only confirms that becoming a veterinarian was definitely the right choice. High up in the mansion, the Baron watches the scene in silence. His servant nervously asks if they are really just letting Owen walk away. As the Baron watches them go, his servant insists that something very strange happened back in that cell. Apparently, the monoceros was seen licking Owen's face before vanishing, but the Baron just brushes it off. His inner thoughts are a mess of doubt, but he finally names Ajin the winner. A few days pass. A sealed envelope lands on the Baron's desk, a massive surgical bill from our boy. Reading it, the Baron's knuckles turn white as he swears he will never forgive him. Next morning, Adrian stops by the clinic, bringing the rare herb Selena asked for. Ajin watches from afar, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. He wonders why Adrian is back. Meanwhile, Selena is shocked by these rare, out-of-season herbs. Adrian stays confident as ever. He claims nothing is beyond his reach, eagerly taking another list of supplies from her. As Selena inspects the goods, Adrian comments on how impressive the quality is. He praises a sprig of sprinia, only to realize it has vanished from his hand. The thief is Bloop, the tiny blob creature already busy snacking on the expensive plant. Adrian scolds the little guy and reaches out to snatch the herb back. But Bloop bites his finger, splits into 3, and slaps him across the face. Pure glare mode. Adrian mutters that pets really resemble their owners, and everything our boy raises is ill-tempered. Selena corrects him instantly, proudly declaring that Bloop is actually her child. Adrian pivots, remarking that it is no wonder the creature has such refined taste. Bloop smirks mischievously. Adrian freezes, realizing the little blob just laughed at him. Selena cages Bloop to stop the antics, but inside this clinic, Ping is no ordinary blob. He views the entire place as his kingdom. To him, the second-floor herb room is his personal territory. Among the hundreds of animals passing through, only 2 beings hold real authority. Himself and Kimanya, Ajin's right hand and the hospital's official enforcer. She has terrifying physical strength, yet even she knows better than to provoke him. Inside Ping forehead is a vision core, allowing him to multiply and bring ruin to enemies. When they first met, Kimanya sensed the danger and tried to attack him. But Ping showed his true power, forcing all resistance into total silence. Ever since then, he has lived comfortably under Selena's protection, ruling the clinic alongside Za. Later, a panicked owner rushes in with a pet hit by a carriage, begging for help. Ajin checks the body, confirms the airway is clear, and stays focused. He starts timed compressions, performing methodical CPR while the owner watches in shock. Moments later, the animal coughs. It is finally breathing again. Shock turns to awe as the owners claim they have just witnessed a miracle. Even Ping watches from his cage, stunned by our boy's power to defy death. Ajin then requests a single leaf from Mandal. Ping scoffs, mocking Mandal's status as a lowly minion and its pathetic dancing. Mandal glares, but Ping just keeps taunting him until he goes back to training. He hits his wheel, running until he divides into 3 identical copies. Immediately, chaos breaks out all across the clinic. He admires his fortress, a cozy setup given to him by our guy as a sign of loyalty. With the temperature and humidity perfectly set, it is the ultimate home. But his satisfaction turns to fury when he finds his fortress completely destroyed. He immediately suspects Mandal, who is smirking from a safe distance. Ping is absolutely livid, accusing him of pure, unfiltered defiance. But Mandal doesn't flinch. Those medicinal herbs have made him stronger than ever. Ping laughs at the idea of being challenged before lunging forward to attack. Mandal dodges perfectly, leaving Ping to crash backward into the dirt. Ping realizes something is different. Mandal is tougher and way more resilient now. But he mocks him anyway. Without a pot, he's just a dying weed. Then with a swift blow, Ping shatters the pot, leaving Mandal in despair. Ping demands he kneel in submission, but Mandal just glares back with fury. Furious and desperate, the little guy starts prepping his secret weapon. A sonic scream designed to tear right through a person's eardrums. Ping panics and tries to cover his ears, but his stubby arms can't reach. But nothing happens, just a weak squeak. Ping laughs at the pathetic attempt. He's savoring the win when Ajin finally arrives, alerted by all the noise. He surveys the mess and the fallen Mandal, knowing exactly what went down here. He kneels by the sobbing plant, whispering that everything is going to be okay. Picking up the pieces, Ajin gives a small smile. It's time for Mandal to get a new home. After getting way too much growth serum, Mandal shoots up to nearly double his size. Ajin starts prepping a much larger pot for his growing friend. He uses top-tier soil and packs it with the best organic nutrients. But as soon as Mandel settles in, something seems very wrong. Ajin checks him over, confused by why he's not reacting at all. Selena plucks a leaf while Ajin isn't looking, leaving him turning around in absolute shock. A faint, pained cry from Mandel echoes throughout the entire clinic. Ajin flinches and covers his ears, while Selena stands there completely frozen. After a long silence, Mandel finally gives a tiny, weak response. Ajin concludes that moving Mandel too much weakened his voice, but it should return over time. By the next morning, Mandel looks terrible. His leaves are drooping and he's aging way too fast. Ajin's heart sinks. He's terrified that Mandel might actually wither and die. Selena thinks more fertilizer will help, but Pio steps in and warns her not to be reckless. She explains that swapping all the soil caused his body to reject the change. That old, familiar soil was basically his lifeblood. He needed it to live. Changing everything at once made him too weak to even adapt. If they had delayed treatment, Mandel wouldn't have survived. Now, Pio takes charge to save him. They have to remove every leaf to save what little moisture is left. They move Mandel to a dark, cool spot to stop him from photosynthesizing. Ajin whispers for Mandel to hang on, promising him a full recovery. Later that night, under the moonlight, Mandel stands perfectly still, silently weeping from his very stem. Ping waddles over, totally oblivious, wanting to play around and cause more trouble. Ajin catches him before he can do anything. Then, the realization finally hits him. Ping stole those missing herbs. Ajin scolds his greed and points out how fat he's become. Ping snaps and bites down hard on Ajin's fingers. Just then, Chandra appears and smacks Ping right across the head. He's freaking out as the mark on Ping's body suddenly flares up with intense light. He senses a lethal surge of energy and begs for the transformation to end. Suddenly, his necklace glows, trapping Ping inside a shimmering, protective energy barrier. That wild power, the division core, gets sucked right into the necklace. Ajin falls back as the energy waves ripple through the entire room. A pulse hits Mandel's pot, bringing the plant back to life instantly. Mandel turns vibrant and begins swaying like he's dancing, while Ajin just stares in total shock. Selena explains that the energy from the core triggered super-fast cell division inside Mandel. This caused some insane regeneration and crazy growth. Pio cheers for Mandel. She's clearly relieved, and Ajin finally lets out a quiet, relaxed laugh. Selena picks up the exhausted Ping, assuring him that his core is safe and will heal. Ajin warns everyone never to feed those leaves to Ping ever again. Selena admits the division core's power is what actually saved their lives today. She quietly thanks her master for creating it. Deep in the western forest, there is a famous ghost story about a legless beauty. They say she looks like a gorgeous woman with long hair, but honestly, she is a man-eating monster with sharp teeth and no back legs, crawling forward whenever she hears a baby cry. Some say she is a vengeful spirit, a yokai who went insane after losing her only child. Pio tells the story with total conviction, while Ajin dismisses the whole thing as completely baseless. Pio stands her ground even as Ajin asks where all the actual witnesses are. Then Selena speaks. She actually saw signs of this creature in the western forest just last week. There were marks on the ground from something crawling on its front legs. The creepy vibe scared everyone off, letting her pick herbs in total peace and quiet. Ajin starts getting nervous when suddenly, a weird scratching sound comes from the door. Both Ajin and Pio jump, as Selena mentions it sounds like someone is standing outside. Even though they tell her not to, she throws the door open to find Max. Ajin is surprised to see Max holding some of Mr. Schwinn's clothes in his mouth. Worried that something happened to Schwinn, he follows the dog to go find out. A few minutes later, he finds Schwinn and luckily, he's doing just fine. Schwinn asks what he's doing there, and Ajin just sighs in total relief. Schwinn explains the fabric is actually just a piece of Max's favorite toy. He figures the dog was just bored since he's been so busy working lately. Deep in the forest, Ajin notices Schwinn working late and pointing at a net in a tree. A kitten is stuck inside. He says poachers are all over the forest, setting up these nets everywhere they can. Poor young animals keep getting caught, and since the kitten is too high, he goes to find a pole. While waiting, Ajin spots some marks on the tree. They're deep scratches, like something with claws was attacking it. Schwinn points out the footprints are weird, looking just like a creature that only crawls on its front legs. They both start worrying about that ghost story. Right then, they hear the sound of crying. Ajin tells Schwinn to stop making that sound, admitting he hates this creepy stuff. Schwinn denies it, but the crying gets closer. A figure emerges and they both freeze, thinking the monster is here. It is a fox instead. Ajin spots the injured hind legs, explaining those dragging footprints we saw earlier. High above, the kitten keeps crying, while the fox barks and claws at the trunk desperately. He realizes the fox is targeting the sound, likely planning to turn the kitten into its dinner. The meowing does not stop, and the net begins to shake violently. Suddenly, the cage plummets. Ajin lunges forward, catching it just in time. What a relief. He peeks inside and realizes it is not a kitten, but a small fox cub. But it is already dead. A noise behind him makes him spin around. The mother fox is ready to strike. Ajin realizes he totally let his guard down. Suddenly, Selena appears, firing a tranquilizer. The massive animal collapses instantly, out cold. Selena quickly checks him for injuries, and thankfully finds him completely unharmed. She had only just arrived moments ago. Investigating rumors of a strange creature, they have officially found a legendary celestial fox. Ajin examines her closely. He confirms her identity while noticing brutal wounds, including gunshot injuries on those back legs. Selena inspects the animal too, realizing she must have given birth quite recently. Her glands are swollen. There are clear traces of suckling, though she has not actually nursed for quite a while. It hits him, the dead cub in that net was her own child. Hunters had killed the cub, cursing their luck that the creature was not fully grown yet. Even so, they decided that rare white fur would fetch a high price. Before they could grab it, the mother's roar pierced the forest as she lunged, sending the hunters running in pure terror. Then, silence. She approached her cub, but then a tiny cat emerged from the shadows, meowing softly. Soon after, she gathered her baby and lay in the rain, while the cub weakly nursed. Later that night, the mother finally opened her eyes again. While she slept, that same little cat appeared nearby. The baby fox crawled over to play until, in the blink of an eye, both were snatched up in a trap. The mother woke to the noise. Seeing her cub trapped high above, she cried out in total helplessness beneath the branches. Back in the present, the mother fox thrashes around violently on the clinic floor. He struggles to hold her, but she sinks her teeth into his arm. Quickly, he jabs a sedative into her neck. Her body tenses up, then slowly relaxes while he protects her stitches from tearing open. Morning arrives, and a low growl echoes through the waiting room, catching everyone's attention. Shana crawls closer. She tries to peek into the room where the sound is coming from. It has been 3 days now. Yet, she still goes berserk every time she wakes, her body already building a tolerance to the meds. Pio wonders if she knows her cub is dead, but our boy isn't so sure about that. The cub had been dead for days. If the mother stayed close, she must have known the truth. Moments later, he notices those stitches are starting to tear open again. The wound refuses to heal, almost like her body is reflecting the agony in her mind. Trauma, Ajin reflects, exists in animals too. Trapped in memories of pure pain, they lash out at themselves and everything around them. Just like a ghost story, the kitten rescued with the fox has finally recovered thanks to some fluids. Still fragile, it needs very careful monitoring. All right, so our lead reminds Pio to keep the temperature steady and ensure the kitten stays far from the fox's cage. Pio nods, heading off to swap out the kitten's cold water bottle for a nice warm one. The tiny kitten just stares toward the mother fox's cage with a thoughtful look. But when Pio returns with the heating pad, she completely freezes. The cage door, it's hanging wide open. The kitten is gone. Panic floods her until she spots it inside the enclosure, nestled right against the fox. Fearing the absolute worst, Pio immediately alerts our lead about the terrifying situation. In her unstable state, Even the slightest movement from the fox could turn fatal for the tiny guest. But as they rush in, they find the kitten pressed against her, nursing quietly and peacefully. The fox stirs, her eyes flicker open, and a single tear rolls down her face. Instead of lashing out, she lowers her head and starts gently licking the tiny creature. The entire room goes dead silent. It is a miracle for us to see, a wounded predator finding peace in the warmth of another soul. The next day, the kitten is full of energy, dragging Pio's glove across the clinic floor. Pio makes a half-hearted grab for it, then gives up as the kitten scampers toward the fox. She decides to grab it later. Right now, the fox is the priority, and her recovery, it is nothing short of incredible. Wounds that had once refused to close are finally starting to knit together cleanly. And for the first time, her rest is no longer plagued by terrifying nightmares. Pio is amazed. This creature was supposed to be crippled, yet she is actually moving her paws again. The nerves are still alive and have finally begun to regenerate. Our lead watches on quietly, knowing he cannot fix everything that humans have taken away. But at least he can return a fragment of what was lost. Finally, the fox and kitten head home together. He watches them leave in silence, hoping they never have to meet under such painful circumstances again. The fox gives one last look back, acknowledging him before vanishing into the deep trees. Eventually, those scary rumors about the monster in the western forest just fade away. Now, a gentler legend takes its place, a story of a white fox roaming the woods with a tiny cat. Meanwhile, back at the clinic, the mandrake stretches proudly in its pot, drawing plenty of curious stares from everyone. Visitors whisper about the strange, radish-like plant moving on its own, wondering if it is some kind of guardian spirit. Some are convinced it is a mandrake, while others say the real guardian is a terrifying cat that can silence even wild beasts. Annoyed by all the talk, the mandrake stomps over and flips Sanya's food bowl in total defiance. The crowd gasps, how dare it challenge the cat's authority? Their shock deepens when Sanya appears, her eyes glinting. The mandrake freezes in pure dread as she slowly advances toward it. She pounces, but instead of a fight, she just coughs up a hairball right on top of it. The onlookers are baffled until our lead explains exactly how cats swallow fur while grooming, which is eventually expelled by vomiting. Realizing he hasn't brushed her lately, he feels a bit guilty about it. He decides it is definitely time for a proper grooming session. An hour later, the fur still seems endless. The piles of shed fur are getting so huge, he is worried she will end up bald. But then, a small patch of bare skin catches his eye. Looking closer, he is dismayed to realize it might be fungal dermatitis. The thought really stings him. How could a professional veterinarian miss his own cat's condition like this? He pulls out a high-end tool, forged by the town's best craftsman. It is the world's first manual pet clipper, unnecessary, but he insists. Siona isn't having it. She hisses and bolts from the table. Most would stop there, but his doctor's pride kicks in. A vet cannot lose a battle of wills against an animal. Steeling himself, he whispers soft words to calm her down. She cries and struggles, but he gently continues to finish the job. Suddenly, her neck begins to glow, blinding light erupts. The clinic is flooded with a brilliant scene from outside. Startled, he backs away as a magic circle appears. Killian emerges from the light, not a vision but the real man. Later, over tea, Ajahn explains everything. Killian listens before revealing that Siona isn't sick, she is just shedding. Monoceros undergo growth cycles where they lose their entire coat. Time to recharge. They need to purify themselves in the pond of sable, or the fur won't return. Our hero looks at his clinic's beloved mascot with genuine concern. The cat everyone loves is suffering from a major hair loss problem. Killian remains calm while watching. He explains that while it isn't dangerous, regrowth will take a long time. That is not good enough for Ajahn. He is finding that pond immediately. He is determined to help her recover. But the pond isn't one place. It's a shifting lake of pure spiritual energy. It is where the sable seals feed. One exists in Bmore, but it's a dangerous zone guarded by the Athathurian order. Unfazed, He insists they set out at dawn. Selena warns of the danger, but Killian agrees to lead the way. What about the clinic? Ajin says the patients will be just fine. Adrian will handle things. By morning, they reach the western forest. This place is a living myth, dense, quiet, and full of ghosts. Strange lights flicker between trees, while the air vibrates with mana. A slithering red flower appears. Killian knows the lake is nearby. Seconds later, Ajin spots a weird blossom and reaches down to investigate it. Selena stops him. Those seals release toxins, and this forest is full of traps. Right then, Siona trots back with a snake in her mouth. Selena carefully takes it away. The snake has a twisted human face, a rare and deadly face snake. Moments after that shock, Ajin shudders and stuffs the cat into her carrier to keep her safe. Killian laughs as the cat looks absolutely insulted by her cage. They finally reach the lake. The water glows like liquid starlight, swirling with heavy mana. Even our vet is left totally speechless by the view. All right, you and I are watching him enter the water alone, mesmerized. Killian warns him it is dangerous, but Ajin isn't backing down. Cats get extremely wary in the open, and having a crowd around only makes it worse. She barely handles grooming. A bath, that is going to be way worse. Killian finally gives in, calling for the water spirit's protection. His chant summons the protection of Celestian, cloaking Ajin in enchantment and granting him shimmering gills that glow under the light. Now safe from danger, our main character takes a steady breath, steeling himself. He jokes under his breath that he would rather faint than deal with what happens next. Still, he gathers Sha in his arms and lures her into the glowing pond with some treats. Her paws touch the water, but she does not panic at all. Instead, she is perfectly calm. The sight is unbelievable. Then a thought hits him. Maybe this is the legendary water attribute cat. The kind that only appears to those whose families have done 3 generations of good deeds. Sha drifts gracefully through the depths, her silver fur shining like moonlight. Soon, the beautiful scene completely melts his composure, leaving him wishing for the comforts of his old world. Cameras, grills, cold beer, or coffee. Anything to save this memory. The lake sparkles with mana bubbles that pop like carbonated light. As he brushes her fur, it starts peeling away in translucent waves, as if she were shedding her entire layer of skin. Ajin marvels at the change until his soap slips away, floating toward a patch of strange flowers. Reaching out instinctively, he realizes way too late that he has touched the poisonous Celsia flowers. A sharp sting hits his hand, and his vision starts blurring. The water fades into darkness. Now, you and I see Ajin waking up in a completely unfamiliar place. He looks around in total confusion, whispering to himself in disbelief. Then, a massive paw lands on his shoulder. He turns around slowly to find a lion with calm, golden eyes. He is frozen. Who is this massive creature standing right in front of him? Terrified by these massive monsters, Ajin freezes as the beast moves closer, but to his total surprise, it starts licking him. Other monsters join the fun and Ajin thinks he is dreaming, but the feeling is so real that he starts telling them their tongues are actually hurting him. While he notes that being loved by a lion is like winning the lottery. A little white cub joins in to play with him too. Ajin suspects Shania looked just like this before the horn was lost. As he wonders if that horn can ever grow back, a voice from nearby tells him it all depends on his actions. Ajin immediately looks in that direction and sees a figure partly hidden in the shadows, watching them closely. But all of a sudden, a black beast suddenly grabs him and yanks him away from the others. Ajin looks at it, wondering why it is acting so differently from the rest of the group. Based on the color and behavior, he suspects it is Sanya. Shortly after, he wakes up back on the lake shore. The elves tell him he fainted from the poisonous Sablesia. And if it were not for that barrier, he would have been in trouble. Panicking, Ajin asks for Sanya. Selena says he is safe on his lap and actually dragged him out of the water when he lost his consciousness. Utterly shocked, Ajin exclaims. Killian clears the air. Ajin was only floating because of that protective barrier. This hits hard. Our main character apologizes for needing protection despite being the guardian. Then he notices something. His little companion has grown quite a bit. He scoops up the cat in celebration. One more trip to the spring is definitely needed. Killian just smiles. Ajin was in literal danger, but look at him now, totally unfazed. On the way back, Ajin shares his dream. A monoceros inside an ancient, crumbling castle. Talking about it triggers another memory, a different vision from before. A dark cell, a black monoceros, and it looked exactly like his little buddy. Selena drops a bombshell. That beast in his dream, it was actually him. Ajin cannot believe it. The creature back then was massive and had a giant mane. Killian points it out right then. Look closely, his mane is already starting to sprout. Now Ajin is even more baffled. Only male lions have manes, right? So he finally asks the question. Selena is blunt as ever. Did you seriously not know he was a male? Ajin is completely lost. He never noticed any masculine parts while he was examining the cub all this time. But then, Killian explains those parts only show up during mating season. Next day, they are back at work. Pio hands over a stack of letters. House call requests from desperate pet owners everywhere. Here is the thing, their hospital usually does not do house calls anymore. But there are exceptions, patients who are too big, too fierce, or just plain weird. Ajin usually says no, but Adrian is being a pest, claiming Ajin overworks the staff. Adrian won't go home. He's convinced Ajin is overworking the female staff. So Ajin finally gives in and takes a house call after all this time. He finds Baron Belmore's rabbit request. Why didn't he just bring Elizabeth in? Then he sees the actual number, 33 giant rabbits. Yeah, that explains the house call. Instant bad feeling. He heads out with Pio. She thinks the little bunnies are absolutely adorable. Then she sees the destruction. Giant rabbits are supposed to be gentle, not wrecking crews. Ajin looks at those teeth. These aren't pets, they are demons in rabbit fur. Just then, the Baroness runs up. She sees the vet and begs him to kick every single bunny out. But the Baron is right behind her. He tells Ajin to ignore her completely. He screams at her to leave. She hates rabbits and honestly, she wants him gone too. So, she tells him to get out. He calls her an old hag, but she reminds him this land is hers. The insults start flying. It is getting ugly. They are going at it. Ajin tries to calm them down for the vaccinations, but they won't listen. That is it. He loses his patience and flips into his terrifying, strict doctor mode. He barks orders at the servants. Catch those rabbits, now. Get those collars on. Separate cages for everyone. An hour of chaos later, they finally have them all. Time for the official inspection. Ajin starts checking them off one by one, but wait. Something is wrong, they are short by 5. 5 rabbits are still loose. When Belmore gets the news, he scans the list and realizes only the smallest ones are missing. Immediately, he orders his servants to tear the entire house apart searching for them. They scour every corner, but 1 hour later, they are back empty-handed and looking completely defeated. Fuming, Belmore summons the caretaker and starts blasting them for being absolutely useless at their jobs. Ajin steps in, keeping it logical. He asks exactly when they last did a head count. One servant explains that since these pets live indoors and are always around, they do not count them all that often. Turns out, the last time they confirmed everyone was about a week ago. He then asks the girl if she noticed anything weird about the missing bunny behavior. But she just apologizes, admitting she cannot even tell the rabbits apart from one another. Belmore is livid. He insults them and fires the whole staff immediately. Ajin manages to calm him down, then asks why they never bothered with identification tags. Seriously, with this many staff, tagging them should have been easy for them. So, what exactly happened? But they complain that the bunnies have big personalities and absolutely hate wearing those tags. Plus, Belmore himself had strictly forbidden it from the start. Pio tells Belmore straight up that this management style just is not working. And he finds it bizarre they cannot distinguish the bunnies when he does it easily. That is when his wife walks in, calling him out for being a total rabbit freak. He snaps back, accusing her of being the one behind the disappearances. She is completely stunned. He reminds her she always hated them, but she is not backing down from this argument. Ajin interrupts the fight to ask her something very important. Does she know where they are? Those bunnies are way too weak to survive in the wild. She tells him flat out she has no clue where the missing 5 went. And look, if she really wanted to get rid of them, why only take 5? Logically speaking, Belmore is not buying it. He thinks she is just trying to get rid of them slowly. But she reminds him that she does not care what he thinks. She would do it right in his face. He realizes she is right. Now, they are desperate for a solution to this mess. If the rest grow as massive as Elizabeth, the whole place is going to be ruined someday. Quickly now, Belmore rushes to comfort his pet while the Baroness storms off. Then, a servant named Thomas speaks up. He asks Ajin if it is possible the pets just decided to run away on their own. Apparently, the 5 that vanished were the smallest of the bunch and were constantly bullied. Another lady adds that because of the bullying, they always had to feed them separately. Owen finds that hard to believe, since giant lowbarred rabbits usually hate going outside. Regardless, he makes up his mind. He's going to find out where they went. While the Baron orders snacks for Elizabeth, Belmore starts reflecting on what his wife said earlier. He requests a pack of hunting dogs. We need ones with a sharp sense of smell. After all, rabbits leave a lot of droppings behind. It is just what they do. If they really ran away, there should be a clear trail of evidence to follow. They bring in the dogs to catch the scent from the droppings and start the hunt. But the first dog just glares at Ajin. Awkward, he apologizes and asks for help. He sends the search parties out with the dogs, but most return with absolutely nothing. One dog, however. They find the trail, and let us just say the entire field is covered in rabbit droppings. Ajin finds it strange. Nothing like this anywhere else in the mansion, just right here in the back garden. Looking closer, he spots something interesting, a mix of both fresh and old droppings. Belmore isn't convinced and orders everyone to keep searching. While the rest search, Ajin stays behind to study those droppings. Meanwhile, Belmore is losing it, panicking that his bunnies somehow grew wings and vanished. But Ajin finally connects the dots on why the trail went cold. The truth, those bunnies didn't just leave those traces there on their own. He starts by asking Belmore where the mansion staff actually sleep at night. Belmore points out that they use a completely separate building. When asked about the married staff, Belmore explains they live in private houses near the mansion. Ajin wheels around to Thomas and asks if he's married. After the man says yes, Ajin points him out as the one responsible. Thomas is shocked, left speechless right in front of the Baron. Furious, Belmore orders a search party to check the man's home. Sure enough, they find all 5 missing bunnies hidden safely inside the house. Belmore is thrilled to see them, but immediately starts screaming at Thomas for stealing them. He demands to know if Thomas was planning to sell them for profit. Was the salary he provided not enough to keep the man honest? But Ajin steps in, noting that if Thomas wanted money, he would have sold them months ago. See, with these giant lops, the smaller they are, the more they're worth. If they get too big or fat, their value on the market drops instantly. Ajin tells the Baron to take a real look at these specific bunnies. That's when the man notices they're way bigger and healthier than the ones back home. Thomas finally speaks up, revealing he didn't take them out of greed or any evil intent. He just wanted to nurse them back to health before returning them to the mansion. Belmore is floored. He realizes Thomas actually had good intentions, and there was a tragic reason for this. If Thomas hadn't taken these 5 small bunnies away, they would have died at the mansion. Confused, Thomas explains that rabbits are incredibly sensitive to their surroundings and the emotions of their owners. They soak up anxiety like a sponge, reacting to every negative feeling. Because the Baron was constantly fighting with his wife, the bunnies picked up on all that stress, fearing they might be abandoned at any moment. In a desperate survival move, the colony started attacking the weakest ones to ensure the rest survived. If these 5 had stayed, the other 28 would have bullied them to death. To the Baron, this sounds completely insane. But Ajin backs him up, finally understanding the real reason why these 5 bunnies are still so tiny. He observes, they're way smaller than they should be, especially compared to a healthy one like Elizabeth. Their growth was stunted by the constant, overwhelming stress of the mansion. Ajin then asks if Thomas tried hiding them in the garden at first. Thomas is impressed, realizing Ajin found the droppings he left behind in that spot. He admits he tried separating them for a few hours a day to feed them. But that wasn't enough to stop the 28 others from tormenting them. So he had no choice but to take them home. Belmore, totally confused, asks him why he would go that far. And Ajin points out that Thomas has a massive amount of rabbit fur compared to the other servants. Also, he could accurately identify the bunnies, even without their ID tags. Ajin then states the obvious by informing Belmore that Thomas loves and cherishes the rabbits just like him. Moved, Belmore asks him why he didn't tell him, believing that if he did, they could have separated the bunnies and raised them differently. But then Thomas surprises him by saying it would be impossible since the only space in the mansion that the rabbits do not occupy is the second floor, which the Baroness uses. The Baron realizes it, and Thomas says he wouldn't be willing to give up the Baroness space for the rabbits because as much as he loves them, he loves the Baroness far more. Meanwhile, the lady being spoken about has some tea with her friends. And they compliment not just her cute cup, but the entire mansion. Still, she complains that it's because her husband is pathologically obsessed with rabbits. Her friends then inform her about how theirs love fishing and hunting bears. And sometimes, they go at it for a month without coming home, and the house ends up filled with the smell of bear pelts. It is then that she realizes that her case with Belmore is better than theirs. They reveal how envious they are of her, saying she gets to act lovey-dovey with her husband. She finds it hard to believe because they always fight and argue, but they do not believe her. And they mention how she was Belmore's childhood first love, and the reason their love story was famous. And also why Belmore started liking rabbits was because she was nicknamed Bunny Teeth. Embarrassed, she glances at the statues and notes that she had forgotten how back then the kids used to tease her with that nickname. But then Belmore complimented her, noting that rabbits are as cute as she was. The Baroness gets silent after remembering his confession. Then later that day, when she returns to the mansion, she learns that they've found the missing rabbits. And after they are done vaccinating them, they will be moved to a new residence like she has always wanted. Surprised that Belmore is kicking them out, she's happy that there will be peace and quiet. But just then, she sees him sulking and saying parting words to the creatures, and she gets scared he's going to abandon them. Immediately, she yells at him, asking where he plans to take them, and asks him where he plans to find someone who dotes on rabbits more than him. Surprised that she's defending the bunnies, Belmore asks her, and she admits she does not. Then she asks him what kind of parent abandons their child. After all, he was the one who said they should raise Elizabeth like their own child. Realizing that she remembers, Belmore is overjoyed. And this makes her blush, before saying that Elizabeth was the name they had decided to give their first child. But since they could not have any, on the Baroness's birthday, Belmore gifted her a rabbit and called her Elizabeth. He told the Baroness that they looked alike, and they should try raising the bunny as if it's their child. Later that day, as the carriage takes Ajin and Pio back, Ajin says he's glad Belmore has reconciled with his wife. Although they may bicker on the outside, he can see that they truly love each other. Pio, on the other hand, feels sad about the rabbits being sent away. Let's see what happens next. Ajin reassures her that the bunnies are moving to a spot right behind his house. She is shocked. Ajin explains better. For 33 adult rabbits to live properly, they will need a forest-sized space. Luckily, the Baron already had a plan. He suggested using the thick forest located right at the edge of his mansion garden. Since it is his land, he wants to build a truly magnificent rabbit garden sanctuary there. As the Baron lists off all the fancy details he wants all over the place, Ajin realizes the guy is a real estate mogul. Right then, Belmore makes Thomas the garden's new general manager. The role seems huge for Thomas, but Belmore explains this is actually a punishment for his very serious crimes. So from that moment on, Thomas must look after the rabbits more sincerely than ever before. This makes the servant incredibly happy. Once briefed, Pio is thrilled and says she cannot wait for the park to be finished. However, Ajin notes they will have to spay and neuter every single last rabbit. Suddenly, the carriage stops. "All right, you and I can see Ajin is suspicious. Is this a robbery?" They are completely surrounded by some very strange people. And they are demanding him. Ajin steps out and asks these short figures what they want, but they just flash their knives and order him to come along. Pio hides behind him, worriedly noting that their voices sound incredibly young and small. Ajin moves closer to one of them and asks if they have a sick animal. The boy points his knife at Ajin, threatening him not to take another step. But Ajin surprises them all by reaching out and snatching the blade away. Just as he thought, the sword was nothing but a toy. Realizing they have been caught, the boys start running away for their lives. But Ajin catches the rascals and delivers justice. He tells them they should have just come to the hospital for treatment. There was no need to pretend to be robbers. One of the boys mumbles that animal hospital fees are just way too expensive. This really pisses Ajin off. They actually tried to kidnap him just to get some free medical treatment. He scolds the kids even more. He demands to know the leader's identity. It is Jack. Ajin says he will tell his mom. But Jack reveals they were not planning on making him work for absolutely nothing. He shows Ajin some coins as a deposit, promising to give him the rest of the money later. The others chip in too, promising to help him out. Together, they beg him to save Mary, their beloved cow. Being the nice guy he is, Ajin tags along to their remote village. Looking at the place, he notes it is very isolated. A sick cow on a farm like this? Bad news. Suddenly, he spots a flag and freaks out when he sees the symbol. But they explain it is just the local religious symbol here. It represents Euros, a six-legged cow they worship while praying for a good harvest every year. Jack explains that there are some serious extremists in his village. If a cow gets sick, these extremists claim the gods are angry. They harass the owners, believing they are cursed and unlucky. For that reason, the village stops them from working, believing the owners themselves are now cursed. The extremists fear they will catch the curse. Shocked, Ajin asks how long the neighbors treat the owners like they are outcasts. Jack says it only ends when the cow either dies or recovers. Ajin then suggests they really should have shown the cow to a doctor earlier. But Pio clarifies that a simple farmhouse life offers no such luxuries. Getting to a real hospital when someone falls ill is nearly impossible for them. Instead, these villagers rely on old school remedies, animal urine, luck, bringing talismans and desperate prayers for healing. Pio then explains that people flock to him because his rates are low, leaving Ajin stunned by just how cheap he is. She adds that his talent is the real draw, but he just brushes it off. The boy eventually leads them home, where they find the entire house plastered in spiritual talismans. At first, Ajin wonders if this is some weird bullying or if the place is haunted. Jack's mother appears, but once she realizes he brought a vet, she immediately apologizes to Ajin. She admits they cannot afford treatment and begs him to just head back home. He shocks her by telling her to forget the money. She just needs to show him the sick cow. The woman is stunned, but Ajin urges her to move fast. She leads him to the barn, where a cow lies on hay. She explains that the illness hit right before delivery, forcing the calf to come earlier than expected. Immediately after, a burning fever and a foul stench took over. Just by looking at her, Ajin knows exactly what happened. But before speaking, Jack's father storms in, spots the veterinarian, and screams at Ajin to get off his land. Jack tries to intervene, but his father has already given up, certain the cow is doomed. As the shouting continues, Ajin flashes back to his past life, seeing another family forced to let their pet die from poverty. This time, he stands firm, telling the owner it's far too early to quit. After all, Mary is not dying today. He even lies, claiming he was already paid for the treatment in advance. Jack is thrilled, but his father is suspicious, wondering if this vet is just a con artist. Luckily, his wife steps in, sensing that Ajin has a truly kind heart. Ajin gets to work. One look in Mary's mouth confirms she is suffering from brucellosis. Curious, Ajin asks about the calf. Jack says it got sick after drinking its mother's milk. Somehow, it recovered after Jack fed it a special boiled morning broth. Ajin realizes Jack used a natural antibiotic herb, but he's amazed the boy even managed to do it. So, Jack explains how he mixed that herbal water into milk from a healthy cow. Hearing that, Ajin gives him praise. Still, Jack feels guilty that the herbs didn't save Mary. Ajin reassures him that Mary's size and long illness meant the herbs just weren't strong enough alone. Truth is, Jack's quick thinking is the only reason she's still breathing. The parents are speechless, realizing their cow has finally made it past the danger zone. Thankfully, Ajin came prepared with the right medicine. They can actually save Mary now. He hooks up an IV and hands them more medicine to keep the recovery going for now. Worried, Mrs. Howard starts fretting over the cost of these rare herbs. Ajin tells her it's on the house and insists she take them for Mary. Suddenly, angry villagers surround the house, shouting for Mr. Howard to hand over the doctor. That is when Jack realizes the village chief's son must have snitched about Ajin being in town. Not wasting a second, Ajin and Howard head outside to face the crowd. Ajin asks them straight up, "What is the problem here?" But the villagers scramble away, terrified that Ajin's bad luck might actually be contagious. Hiding in the bushes, the chief confirms Ajin is the vet. Howard immediately starts screaming at them, convinced they are just looking to make trouble for Ajin. But the chief surprises them. He says they are actually just worried about Howard. He claims all doctors are exactly the same. They just use medicine as an excuse to rob poor people of their entire life savings. Stunned, Ajin asks if they have spent their entire lives being lied to. He makes it clear he is no con artist. He explains the fee is already paid in full. There are 0 extra charges. Someone else pops up, doubting Howard could ever afford a real vet like him. Annoyed, Ajin asks if he needs to write a formal receipt for them to listen. Looking at Ajin's serious face, they realize he is telling the truth. Now they are completely confused. The priestess will be absolutely furious if she finds out what they have allowed to happen here. One man suggests a different path. If Ajin actually cures the cow, they benefit. Meanwhile, Ajin just stands there, watching them gossip like he is completely invisible. After a long silence, the village chief speaks up. They won't chase him away or interfere, but make no mistake, they still do not trust him. Ajin must remain in the village until the high priestess arrives to judge him. Hearing this demand makes Ajin wonder what these people are really plotting. They want time to see if the cow actually recovers under his care. It is the only way to prove he is a real doctor, but if he fails, divine punishment is coming his way. Ajin is fired up to crush their superstitions. He accepts the challenge, ready to show them the true power of modern medicine. He gets back to work, treating her with proper care and nutrients. Within days, Mary is fully recovered. Howard and his family are beyond grateful for Ajin's incredible hard work. The villagers are left speechless. He actually cured a sickness they thought was fatal. Look at that glossy fur. Ajin is beaming, proving science beats superstition every time. He acts like it is no big deal, but let's be real. He put in his absolute best effort to slam shamanism once and for all. Pio starts handing out specialized scrolls. These scrolls contain first aid for common animal diseases and simple recipes for medicine they can easily whip up right at home. Now, these villagers finally have something to rely on when disaster strikes. Impressed, everyone is praising Ajin for his help. But then the chief pauses, suddenly serious, and asks Ajin what his main goal in this village really is. Ajin is confused, but the chief repeats himself. Why is it so hard to trust? The chief explains that in their world, doctors only trade lives for cold cash. For decades, it has been the same. Every time an animal fell ill, they begged for help, but no one ever came. Even during a massive epidemic, those vets only treated the nobles' pets while everyone else suffered. Not a single doctor would step foot in a poor countryside village. Ajin tells him that he truly understands their pain. But those greedy noble vets, they were never real doctors to begin with. The profession itself is not wrong. Ajin insists he wasn't lying when he said he has no hidden agenda or secret motives. Look, as a dedicated doctor, he just can't turn his back on a sick animal that's too poor to pay. Watching from the side, young Jack is completely inspired, promising himself he'll grow up to be just like him. Suddenly, a priestess barges in, claiming Howard's barn is drowning in dark, impure energy. She warns everyone to stay far back. The villagers drop to their knees, apologizing frantically for not rolling out the red carpet to bring her here. She ignores their pleas, announcing that the gods themselves ordered her to make a grand entrance. Our main character checks out her outfit, noticing how much she looks like a Miko from his previous world. It's a total case of déjà vu. She eyes Mary the cow, and seeing her size, the priestess starts chanting absolute nonsense. Right on cue, the men bow down, swallowing every lie she's feeding them. Ajin is stunned people still fall for this. He watches in disbelief as her fake ritual ends. She declares the gods have cured the cow, so everyone better start showing some gratitude. The villagers start praising the heavens, and honestly, it drives Ajin crazy. He speaks up, letting her know he's the one who actually stayed up all night treating that cow. She glares at him. Realizing he's an outsider, she claims he's reeking of unholy energy. She starts another chant, before screaming that she can smell the foul stench of a beast on him. For Ajin, though, it's obvious why. After all, he's a vet. The villagers shrink back in terror, as she vows to punish him in the name of her divine gods. Back in his old world, whenever exam season hit, his department would always get swept up in weird occult stuff. Students would carry lucky talismans and strange occult bracelets, praying for some magical help to pass. The worst was some creep wearing the underwear of someone who'd already passed the test. Thinking it brought luck, but it just grossed everyone else out. Back then, Ajin hated this. It made no sense for future doctors to rely on superstitions. So he told them to just study harder. This offended them, and one bitter student cursed him, saying he'd pay for being so arrogant after opening his clinic. He predicted Ajin would end up in another world, or trapped in some bizarre religious trial. Talk about oddly specific, it felt like something straight out of a webtoon. He brushed it off then, but little did he know, every word of that prophecy was coming true. Currently, he's being put on trial by this total sham of a priestess. Moments ago, after listening to her ramble through her crazy lines, Ajin asks what she's even talking about. Jack explains the terrifying plan. Ajin has to beg for forgiveness in a ritual before being tossed into a pen with a divine bull. If he's forgiven, he walks away safe. If not, well, he'll be meeting her gods in person. Throwing a live human into a bullpen is absolute madness to him. But unfortunately, he realizes this is exactly where he's heading. At the ritual site, Ajin curses his luck while poor Pio cries as they drag him away. Right then and there, Ajin decides to use the dragon's authority, but wonders if he should put up a protective barrier first. But that feels kind of embarrassing, so he thinks about just caging the bull instead. He quickly scraps that plan. If the divine bull gets a scratch while in there, he'll be in even deeper trouble. Just a short distance away, Ajin hears Jack begging for his release, watching as the boy desperately scales the ritual barricade. His terrified parents scream for him to stop, shouting that it is far too dangerous. But then, Jack holds up the key to the bullpen. He warns them he will use it unless they free Ajin. Ajin orders him down, but Jack insists he is used to climbing this high. However, Ajin keeps shouting for him to get down. Jack has no idea the bull has already locked onto him and is charging. The boy hangs onto the fence. Suddenly, the beast slams into the wood, sending the entire structure crashing down. Jack's parents shriek in horror as their son loses his grip and plummets toward the hard dirt. Miraculously, he lands on a soft bed summoned right out of Ajin's dragon necklace. The villagers can only stare in disbelief as Ajin breaks from the ritual to reach the boy. They wonder if he is a wizard. Once the shock wears off, Jack wonders where the bed came from, just as Ajin arrives to check on him. Jack asks if Ajin saved him, but Ajin insists the boy was the hero. Suddenly, Ajin feels the bull's hot, steamy breath hitting the back of his neck. He realizes too late that his barrier missed its mark, leaving him wide open to the beast. Ajin braces for impact while the priestess gloats. But wait, we are about to witness something truly unexpected. The bull simply licks him. The villagers gasp, claiming he has been blessed by the heavens themselves. It's the ultimate holy sign, the sacred lick of the divine bull. The chief immediately snaps at the crowd, ordering everyone to go pay their respects to Ajin. Ajin feels awkward and tries stopping him. But the chief begs for mercy, apologizing for how rudely they've treated him until now. Pointing a finger at the shaman, the chief calls her a total fraud for not recognizing Ajin's nobility. He declares that she is no longer fit to serve as their priestess. The old woman desperately tries to defend herself. But the villagers turn on her, furious that she tried to exploit the bull for her own gain. Within moments, they kick her out of the village for good, finally bringing back the peace. With the drama over, Jack escorts Ajin and Pio, who are now loaded down with gifts. Along the way, Jack thanks Ajin for saving their village and getting rid of that lying shaman. He mentions the villagers will keep up with their spiritual traditions. Ajin tells him there is nothing wrong with having faith, especially when people need something to lean on. Faith is a great support system, as long as it does not cross into dangerous obsession. Essentially, they just need to be careful with how they use their beliefs. Jack is impressed, telling Ajin he wants to be a cool veterinarian just like him someday. He asks if he can do it, and Ajin promises him he can. Saying his goodbyes, Ajin tells Jack to come find him whenever he needs a hand. Ajin and Pio finally arrive back at their hometown, letting out a massive sigh of relief. After so many days, it is finally time to chill. As they head inside, thinking they can finally unwind, they run into a group of men blocking the road, telling them to take a detour. Confused, Ajin tries to push through, but the men insist that this particular path is strictly off-limits right now. Then, they ask if he's heard of the Ajin Hospital. Realizing he's the owner, the officer blinks in shock before announcing that his house has been taken over by leaf-headed monsters. Ajin knows it is Mandal. He is going back right now to settle this. The guard warns that he better use earplugs or his eardrums are going to explode from the noise. Ajin and Pio rush toward the hospital, but you and I see a massive barricade wall blocking the place. Once they arrive, they see guys with sticks signaling to each other. They cover their ears, pushing the Mandal back to scale the fence. Suddenly, those creatures reach the very top of the barrier. Their screams are terrifying. Ajin stares in shock at the horde, calling them straight-up zombies. Luckily, the guards knock them back. Ajin and Pio notice the Mandal haven't just grown in number. Their colors look twisted, and their voices sound completely wrong. A guard holding the line realizes it is the first time for Ajin and Pio. So, he warns them that those piercing screams are the least of their worries. A single bite from a Mandal causes a bizarre skin disease. Even worse, it is incredibly contagious, spreading like absolute wildfire. That is exactly why they have everyone infected locked behind that fence. Suddenly, a door slams hard. Someone is begging to be let out, but the guards refuse due to the infection. They scream back, insisting their skin disease is all healed. The guard demands proof, and once they see she is clear, she is finally let out. Recognizing her, Pio and Ajin worriedly ask what happened in there. And she explains that hundreds of Mandal suddenly swarmed the entire village. Most people got away, but she took a beating. Ajin worries about her ears, but she's okay since Selena and Adrian have been handing out medicine to everyone. Hearing that Selena is inside the building, he tells Pio to take her home. He is going into that infested building alone. Hearing that, they ask him if he has completely lost his mind. But Ajin knows he can't just leave the Mandal like this. You and I know he has to act. Moments later, he is shoved inside and handed a stick to fight them off. He tries to calculate the distance to the house, but the Mandals spot him and immediately start the chase. Still, he thinks he can outrun them. After all, he has longer legs. But things go south fast. He is surrounded and they begin screaming together. Even with the plugs, that sound cuts right through. Ajin clutches his head. To him, it sounds like 50 tone-deaf people screaming a punk version of trot at completely different pitches. He is losing it, desperately swatting them all away. But his vision starts to fade. He sees them closing in and fears he is about to get mauled. Just as he wonders if they have teeth, magic wind and sound negation kick in, and someone grabs his hand. It is Selena. He finally realizes she is there. So he follows her lead. As they scramble through a window Adrian has opened up. The second they are inside, they slam it shut, locking the Mandal out while Owen struggles to process the chaos. Selena tells him he is safe now. She used soundproofing magic so he can finally take the earplugs out. Instantly, his head starts to clear. He pulls them into a hug, thanking them for the save. Once he calms down, he asks about the Mandal. Selena explains this is all because of Pingping's separation core. Ajin confirms his suspicion. That core is exactly what made the Mandal grow so fast. Selena notes that during the last incident, much of that energy was reflected back. All right, so things didn't actually go as far as individual division. But this time, a separation core magic formula was added, causing Mandal to split into hundreds. Selena worries something went wrong, since only the original body's darkest nature remains. Now, as she wonders where everything went wrong, Ajin asks her what the frame above them is, and she admits it's an image of Mandal falling into the circle. She reveals she recently managed to duplicate Pingping's separation core. But while she was running experiments, Mandal was busy playing with Pingping right then. He fell right into the circle. Ajin realizes she used magic without even checking for pets. He snaps at her flimsy excuse, saying he knew she would cause an accident eventually. He keeps scolding her. But Adrian takes the fall for not assisting her. Naturally, Ajin redirects his frustration toward him. He asks Selena if there is any way to fix this mess. She tells him they must follow the same method used for the Bloop's infinite division. Among the hundreds of clones now running around, only one of them actually holds the separation core. They just have to find him, but how do you pick one Mandal out of hundreds? Ajin is worried because they all look exactly the same. Selena explains that ordinary people stand no chance of finding it, since the separation core is made of high-concentrated mana. A magic user can sense it. Before Pingping split, she could find it instantly. But with so many clones scattered everywhere now, finding the real one is going to be tough. He recalls Selena's story about the Bloops multiplying and tearing the whole village apart in the past. Ajin asks how they solved it back then. Selena admits it was a total nightmare, even with her master's legendary magic. Finding the core wasn't something they could do instantly. Hearing her mention a master, both Ajin and Adrian get pretty curious about the person. Ajin knows better than to push, but Adrian asks if the master is a man or woman. Selena finishes by saying it took several days of searching to finally find that bloop. She promises they'll find the original Mandal, and then Siona will finally come back home. Ajin freezes, then he completely loses it once he realizes Siona is actually missing. Selena tries to calm him down with a reminder. She's a monoceros, meaning she's safe. Humans would itch like crazy if that Mandal sap touched their skin, but not her. Instead, that sticky stuff has zero effect on furred animals. Ajin is still worried sick about Siona and wants to find that cat as soon as possible. Suddenly, a noise cuts through. Selena warns him the soundproofing magic is about to fail. Outside, clones are swarming the building, screeching as they climb. Adrian is the first to notice. So, he warns the others, making Selena wonder if the creatures are actually drawn to Ajin's aura. Right then, Mandals smash through the second-floor window. Everyone quickly grabs their earplugs, realizing the devilish swarm is about to come rushing down on them. These devilish creatures appear, and they're all coming for Ajin. Just as the others catch on, Selena shouts for Adrian to fling open the nearest window. With a burst of magic, she blasts those swarming mandals right out into the night. Adrian slams the window shut. Thinking the threat is gone, Ajin finally breathes and yanks his earplugs out. But a sneaky mandal was lurking nearby, and it lunges at him with a screech. Fast as lightning, Ajin's dragon necklace glows, sealing the creature's mouth tight. They watch the little monster struggle hopelessly. Realizing its tiny arms are too short to break the seal, Ajin picks it up. Following Selena's lead, they decide to keep this one inside. He plops the creature into some soil. And within seconds, it's fast asleep. Ajin is floored by the discovery, noting the creature's total simple-mindedness perfectly matches the original mandal. So, he wonders if he should make it a younger brother. But by morning, the party's over. The mandal's face is gone, it's just a regular plant. This confirms Selena's hunch. These clones burn through their mana in 24 hours, leaving behind nothing but ordinary, faceless garden herbs. Yet their numbers aren't dropping. That means the star-marked original is still out there, splitting constantly. They need to hunt it down fast. Selena brews a quick potion, granting whoever drinks it 1 hour of total immunity to that nasty skin disease. As Adrian offers his praise, Selena turns to Ajin and demands he drink the entire thing. Confused, he asks her why. And just a few moments later, he is tied to a wooden pole outside, realizing he's being used as live bait to lure the mandals back. Ignoring his screams for help, Selena points out that the swarm is already arriving. Suddenly, a pile of mandals pounce on him and start biting like crazy. Luckily, these clones lack teeth, so Ajin is just getting tickled half to death. Meanwhile, Selena focuses her senses, searching for the massive mana signature of the original. She spots it right on Ajin's body, but before she can move, a flash of light streaks past. And just like that, the mandal is snatched up by Ajin's right-hand man, Sianya. Selena watches the creature fight back, confirming that this is the original. To save Ajin's face from any more trauma, Selena uses her magic to seal the creature's mouth and bind its limbs. She grabs the beast and drops it into a glowing magic circle, forcefully ripping that star right off its head. Moments later, the mandal goes quiet and every clone falls asleep. Adrian celebrates the victory, but Ajin is still tied up, begging to be let down. Later, Adrian starts piling the mandrakes into a single wooden cart. He grumbles about the backbreaking labor, but Ajin reminds him they are lucky the wall kept these things quarantined. Noticing the roots are still pulsing with life, Ajin suggests they should try planting them. And Selena agrees with him, saying they need an environment just like the original flower pot. Adrian's face pales as he realizes his work is far from over. A few days pass, and with Selena's help, the smart farm is finally complete. Ajin is overjoyed when he sees the new setup. And he's already dreaming of a massive harvest that will make them the world's first herbal medicine tycoons. But Selena crushes those dreams, explaining that these mandrakes won't have the same miraculous effect as the original. Mandal's body has been absorbing mana for an incredibly long time. Because of that, when the mana enters another living creature as medicine, it sparks powerful life energy and magical healing effects. But with these mandrakes, she can barely feel any mana in their leaves. Even so, they still have basic medicinal properties. They work as regular herbs. Ajin pauses, thinking back to a remote village that had no access to any doctors. Consequently, he makes up his mind and tours the town with his team, apologizing for all the recent trouble. He hands out ointment and painkillers to the grateful citizens. He also gives them scrolls containing dosage details for their animals. Adrian, on the other hand, charms the ladies by handing out flowers. Later that evening, after a hard day of work, Ajin thanks his assistants, including Schwein, who dropped by to help. Ajin notes that back in his world, he would have been sued and gone bankrupt. Schwein says outbreaks are normal. This leaves Ajin wondering just what kind of difficult lives the people in this world lead. Schwein mentions a famous disaster where flopier packs multiplied out of control. not a single village survived after getting caught in that swarm. He speaks on behalf of the villagers, explaining how terrified they were that this would turn into another disaster like the Flopier Pax. Thankfully, this whole situation was settled quite easily. Curious? Looking at the carriage, the man asks what the seedlings are for. Ajin explains that a nearby village lacks any kind of proper care for their own animals. He reveals his plan to cultivate the herbs there and keep them very well supplied for everyone. Worried? Schwein asks if mandrakes scream like demons. Ajin says that is not the case. These mandrakes are special because they are farmed, not wild. The only drawback is that their medicinal power is a bit lower. A messenger arrives. Ajin hands over the goods to be delivered to Jack. Moved by Ajin's kindness, Schwein happily calls him a great guy. Selina, on the other hand, is surprised Ajin isn't selling the herbs as she predicted. She wonders if he really was a true veterinarian in his past world. Ajin turns to Selina and asks her to decide on the smart farm business herself. She is totally confused. He tells her that if she has a conscience, she needs to compensate for the damage caused to the hospital by this mess. Her respect vanishes instantly. She concludes Ajin is just obsessed with money. Days later, the hospital is back to business. Every employee is working diligently. Mandel wanders around the place without a care in the world. Traumatized people still shriek, staring anxiously and hoping the creature won't cause them any more trouble. Ajin and Ya watch the hospital, feeling like high-level corporate chairmen. A new worker, who has joined them at the hospital, tells Ajin about the next patient. He checks the chart and sees it is a Cerberus. He wonders if it looks like the one from Greek mythology. Happy to see a real-life gatekeeper of hell, he excitedly calls for the next patient to finally enter the room. To ushered they. Owen brings the patients in, but they are nothing like the legends he knows. Instead, he finds a three-headed beast biting itself like a total idiot. Normally, Ajin has a major soft spot for silly dogs. Especially big, scary dogs that melt the second they see a sweet snack or a ball to play with. But this Cerberus, seeing it bite its own heads is just pathetic. The servants are exhausted from watching the heads fight all day. They bring out 3 separate dishes to force some cooperation. Suddenly, the beast spots the food. The heads start feasting, and for a moment peace returns, or so they thought. Draco is a greedy one, trying to steal from Penpin's meal. Penpin snaps back, and they get into a total brawl. Annoyed by the constant chaos, Ajin calls for 3 muzzles to finally shut the beast up. He starts learning their names and unique behaviors, amazed by their distinct personalities. He compares them to Siamese twins. He figures they are like Siamese twins, sharing the same nervous system despite having separate brains. Gerard, the owner, speaks. Gerard then explains to Ajin that it is not just their personalities that are different. It is not just personality, their food preferences and abilities are totally unique. Draco is the aggressive one, obsessed with meat and sharp vision. Kaiba is the polar opposite, relying on a keen sense of smell. Penpin is the calmest, blessed with incredibly sharp hearing. Catering to their specific tastes keeps their diet balanced. Gerard pets them, insisting they actually get along. They have grown used to one another. Since they were born, he took them for walks every day, and they doted on each other like angels. After hearing that story, Ajin is disappointed. These are not the legendary guardians of hell. Gerard then explains how things went horribly wrong on one particular day. On that day, the heads started biting themselves, even though he tried his best to warn them. They kept hurting themselves daily, growing weaker as time passed. Ajin thinks about it for a second, wondering if he should call this condition fighting or self-harm. Selina listens in, disagreeing with both of those labels. She explains that it is common for animals to bite their own bodies when they are under extreme stress. But Ajin feels like something is still wrong. While they debate whether this is self-harm or a fight, Gerard starts staring intently at Selina. He recognizes her. Was she at the royal palace? He remembers it. He saw her there when he was just a little kid. Ajin listens while Selena tries to play it cool. But then Gerard confirms it. She is the royal magician's apprentice. While he keeps talking, Draco gets pissed and starts a massive fight with the other heads. So, the servant alerts Gerard. He is worried, so Ajin tells Selena to grab one of their necks. The beast keeps wrestling. Siona shoots them a sharp glare and a shout, silencing them instantly. Fed up with their antics, Ajin tells Tors to get the neck collars ready. Once the collars are on, Cerberus looks depressed, leaving Gerard extremely worried. Ajin reviews their behavior and notes they got agitated whenever Gerard spoke with Selena. He asks Gerard if the beasts just hate women, but Gerard dismisses it. He thinks about it and realizes they hate his fiancée without even meeting her. Ajin asks about the lady, and Gerard starts gushing about the beautiful daughter of Baron Barca. He shares every single tiny detail, and as he speaks, Draco reacts violently, followed by the others. Seeing this, Ajin gives the order to remove their collars immediately. He checks Draco's pulse and finds it steady despite the creature's heavy breathing. He then informs Gerard that Cerberus will need to be hospitalized. Gerard is terrified since he has never spent one day apart from them, but Odin calls him over and whispers some secret words. Suddenly, he dashes off in tears, shouting that he will return tomorrow. The second he leaves, they bolt for the door and scratch at it, wanting to follow. But right then, Ajin instructs Gerard to step back inside. When they see him, they start playing happily, proving to Ajin it was all an act. He also suspects their self-harm habit might be part of the same trick. So he asks Gerard exactly when the heads first started attacking each other. Gerard says it started 5 or 6 months ago, and Ajin notes that the timing perfectly matches when he met his fiancée. Ajin informs him that the real reason behind all this aggression, lack of sleep, and their failing health is actually jealousy toward his fiancée, which leaves Gerard stunned. Ajin explains it clearly, reminding him that he has never spent a single day away from them since the moment they were born. This means their attachment to him has become incredibly intense. To these beasts, he is the most important person in their whole world. Now, when he starts showing interest in someone else, they enter a total crisis and start using extreme behaviors to get his attention. Gerard is shocked to find out that jealousy was the root of everything. Ajin tells him not to worry, as many pet owners face this, just at a different level. Worried, he asks if there is a fix, and Ajin assures him, but warns it takes time. First, they must change the negative emotions the mutts have toward his fiancée to help them bond. For starters, whenever Gerard mentions his fiancée, he should praise and reward the dog heads even more than usual. Next, he should take items that carry his fiancée's scent. He needs to hide their favorite snacks on them and offer massive praise for showing interest. It won't be easy, but Gerard must repeat this process over and over. If the dogs eat snacks covered in her scent by accident, he should give them plenty of praise. The next step is their socialization training. Their bond with Gerard is so intense that there is simply no room for any outsiders. That is why Ajin suggests they spread out the excessive attention the dogs pour onto their guardian. Ajin asks if there are other animals in the castle, and Gerard confirms that there are. But those creatures are terrified of Cerberus, making Gerard realize he has spoiled them far too much. Ajin then suggests finding a beast-type mammal that is not terrified of the 3 heads. He tells Gerard that he has found the perfect animal for this specific task. So they bring out Julian, a powerful Fenrir. The Cerberus pups growl at Julian immediately, but he refuses to back down at all. The maids try their best to get the pets to bond, but it is totally useless. Ajin suddenly wishes he had a frisbee, and to his complete shock, his dragon necklace actually grants his wish. He tosses it, and seeing the toy for the first time, the mutts immediately start playing fetch. This goes on for several hours, until the giant dogs are completely worn out. Julian's owner looks at the Cerberus and realizes they have not been fixed yet. Ajin explains that these moots are still just babies despite their massive physical size. The man glares at Gerard, who is just confused. Later, a letter arrives from his fiancée. Rosalina writes about how she regrets that they cannot meet up with each other just yet. She says she cannot wait for his pets to finally open their hearts to her. Gerard blushes like a little kid while reading, noting he would wait for her forever. He calls her a deeply understanding person, with a heart as beautiful as her face. The mutts get jealous and start growling, but Gerard remembers Ajin's advice from before. He was told not to react to the pet's dramatic and jealousy-inducing behaviors. While the servant tries to calm the dog's three heads, who are snapping at each other, Gerard calls their names and orders them to stop, feeling glad when they actually listen. He notices their anxiety and quickly reassures them, vowing that he will never abandon them. As he strokes their heads, he explains they are getting a wonderful new family member and tells them to look forward to having two people who love them. A few days later, Gerard shows up at the hospital to happily inform Ajin that the pets have improved significantly and no longer try to destroy or bury any of Rosalina's belongings. Relieved, Ajin decides it is finally time to move on to the final step. Now, this is the moment we've been waiting for, as the Grand Barca carriage finally arrives right on schedule. But just before the meeting, the dogs begin growling in tension, making Gerard worry if they are truly ready for his fiancée. Owen tells him to stay calm and assures him they have an emergency plan. Selina is standing by with sedative syringes just in case the moots snap. They expected a dazzling noble lady like Gerard described, but the reality is a huge surprise. As the door opens, Owen and Selina are left absolutely speechless. They see a massive, muscular girl who looks like she belongs in a special forces unit. The pups take one look at her and are immediately terrified, ruining their original plan. They were supposed to scare her, but Rosalina just calls them cute and walks right up. Ajin thinks this is a bad idea since you shouldn't approach them so loudly. He tells Selina to get ready, but then something truly amazing happens. The Cerberus does not attack her at all, and they simply accept their fate. Gerard is overjoyed to see them snuggling in Rosalina's arms and accepting treats, finally trusting Ajin's methods. Ajin, on the other hand, realizes the mutts have accepted Rosalina as their new boss. Seeing how smoothly it went, he wishes they had just introduced her much sooner. Selina sees how much Rosalina loves dogs and knows they will be a wonderful family. Ajin is taking in the sights. Suddenly, he feels a freezing chill. Selina is actually impressed that his senses are sharp enough to notice the sudden change. She warns him that the atmosphere is shifting. A brutal, unnatural cold spell is about to hit them hard. He finds it weird since it was just warm. But sure enough, a few days later, Ajin is nursing a nasty cold. He looks outside and freezes. The weather has turned into a total frozen wasteland. This is beyond extreme. Selina says a mana deficiency is causing this. It's a massive climate anomaly. The world tree is withering. Now the north is freezing while the south is turning into a literal oven. Baffled, Ajin asks how there's a climate crisis without any carbon emissions. Selina just tells him he'd better get used to it. These spells are short but violent, she warns, and stick with me, it's only going to get much worse. Realizing how bad things are getting, Ajin starts crying and begs to go home. He rants about heaters and electric blankets that actually keep people warm. Selina has no idea what he's talking about. To her, he just sounds like he's lost his mind. She just drags him along. They need to find some thick clothes before they both freeze. They hit up a high-end boutique, where the clerk shows Ajin their most luxurious, premium scarf. The price tag is insane. Ajin is fuming at Adrian for reserving such an expensive shop for him. He decides to try it on anyway, fully intending to leave without spending a single coin. But the moment it touches his neck, it's pure heaven. He's so warm he practically falls asleep on the spot. Moments later, he walks out of the shop with Selina. Turns out, he actually loves the expensive scarf now. But then he spots an old man. He's huddled in thin, ragged clothes, shivering all alone in the bitter cold. Everyone is ignoring him. But then, Ajin notices something strange hidden under the old man's rags. It's a tiny creature. Ajin tosses a gold coin into the man's hat, leaving the poor soul absolutely stunned by the gesture. That's not all. Ajin wraps his scarf around the man. You need to keep your neck covered in this weather. He explains that the vital blood vessels are all in the neck. It's the most important spot. He tells the man to take good care of his little friend, hiding in the coat, too. Shivering, he heads back to the hospital with Selena to finally get out of the wind. While warming up, he hears the man is a legendary Durka player who used to perform with a spirit monkey. He's shocked, taming a monkey like that is supposed to be impossible. Ajin wonders how that old man pull off such a feat. He even worries if the whole performance was just some kind of animal abuse. Selena says the monkey's dance was natural, it was never forced or trained. She explains the Durka is a southern instrument. It's famous for a sound that is both heartbreaking and beautiful. When a master starts playing, it's not just humans who listen, animals gather around as well. Pio remembers the marmosets. They would wake up and start dancing the moment the old man touched the strings. They looked genuinely happy. Ajin realizes that some animals really do have deep reactions to specific sounds. Back home, he remembers how camels would actually cry when they heard the haunting melody of the Mejigum. Confused, Ajin asks why a master musician ended up living like a beggar. Pio explains that everything changed after a tragic accident. The old man just couldn't perform anymore. Ajin is curious. What kind of accident could possibly ruin a man's life like that? Meanwhile, the old musician leaves the town behind and begins the slow trek back to his home. Once he makes it back, he calls out to his little companion. Tucked away in his coat, a tiny monkey wrapped in fur peeks out. With a smile, the old man tells his pet that thanks to Ajin's generosity, they can finally afford some milk and firewood for the night. He carefully sets the monkey down and starts prepping the firewood, promising his little friend that they'll be warm and cozy very soon. The monkey crawls out from the blankets, and the old man chuckles. It seems the little guy caught the scent of the milk and is starving. So, he promises to give the injured little monkey some right away. As the winter chill deepens, everyone is coming down with a cold. Over at the clinic, Ajin puts up a sign requiring masks for anyone entering. A new visitor arrives, and those in the queue quickly realize it's actually that beggar from before. They all start whispering, wondering if he can even afford the doctor's examination fee. The poor man is suffering from a nasty cough himself. But Taurus calls his name and leads him into the exam room. Inside, Ajin recognizes the man instantly. Realizing Ajin is a doctor, the man bows and thanks him once again for his previous kindness. Ajin brushes the thanks aside and turns his attention to Toto. That's the little pet hidden in the man's coat earlier. It turns out the poor monkey has a severe cold. Ajin realizes the old man only came for a checkup because of the money he had given him earlier that day. He checks Toto's breathing and notes that the little monkey's lungs sound incredibly rough. It's a chronic cold. Once a creature like Toto gets this sick, it takes a very long time for them to recover. The man worries it's just old age, but Ajin chuckles, admitting that Toto isn't exactly a young monkey anymore. Still, he reassures the worried owner that this isn't something they can't handle with proper care. Curious, Ajin asks what happened to Toto's leg. And the old man explains that the poor thing lost it in a tragic carriage accident. Ajin puts the pieces together and realizes this story matches exactly what Pio had told him before. So, he prescribes some medicine and warns the man to keep Toto warm at all times. If these symptoms drag on, things could get dangerous. The man reveals that he and Toto actually traveled here from the warm south. So they aren't used to this bitter cold. And it's probably best they leave before Toto gets even older. As they leave, Ajin watches them carefully. He notices the man has no family and wonders why they can't just return to their hometown. Selena explains it's due to the migration tax, a massive fee that must be paid to the local region lord. And the farther the distance, the more expensive that tax becomes. Because of that, the old man lives in poverty, likely scraping every penny to pay the tax. Once he gets back to his hut, He tells Toto that thanks to Ajin's discount, he was even able to afford an apple. Giving the fruit to the monkey, he says he'll pick up some construction work tomorrow to buy more firewood for them. He picks Toto up, telling him they just need to survive this one winter. And by next year, they'll finally return to the south. A few days later, though, the weather takes a turn for the worse. Toto sits there patiently, waiting for his owner to come back through the door. He's absolutely overjoyed when he finally sees the old man enter the house. But as Toto rushes over, the man coughs violently, spitting up blood before collapsing onto the floor. Panicked, Toto circles him, trying desperately to wake him up, but it's no use. The old man isn't moving. With no other choice, the little monkey opens the door to seek help, but the freezing wind nearly knocks him back. Through the heavy snow, he struggles away from the hut and heads toward town to find help. There, local traders are busy complaining about the awful weather. They decide to call it a day and head home, figuring the business is just dead. But then they spot poor Toto, shivering and suffering from severe frostbite. They wonder if he's been abandoned. Seeing them, Toto cries out for help with all his might. Sadly, they don't get it, and assume his owner will be back for him soon enough. With that, they just walk away. Toto is left alone, remembering the glory days when crowds cheered for his shows with the old man. He drags himself up, trying to perform one last time, but the people only notice his missing leg. They recognize him as the musician's monkey right away. But he's totally spent. Toto loses his balance and collapses onto the cold ground. Luckily, Ajin is nearby. He spots the little guy and rushes over to pull him close. Realizing Toto is burning up with a dangerous fever, Ajin knows he has to find the monkey's master. He has no idea that the poor old man is lying unconscious in his own home. You see, this old man was once a legendary musician. His melodies were so powerful, they could make anyone laugh or cry. Even wild animals would gather just to dance along to his beautiful tunes. But everything changed when a fire took his family and his home, sending his life into a spiral. Grief and fear haunted his every waking moment, but the nightmares he faced while sleeping were even worse. As the years passed, his music fell apart and he couldn't earn a cent. Then, life decided to kick him while he was down. While working back-breaking labor just to eat, he was struck down by a massive fever. Toto had gone out for food, but when the old man finally woke up, the monkey was gone. All he heard were rumors that a carriage had struck a small animal. He found Toto and broke down in tears, holding the little guy close. He blamed himself for their pathetic life, realizing he almost lost his only family left. He swore he would turn things around for Toto's sake. This monkey was the only shred of hope he had left. He vowed to save enough for the migration tax so they could move south to a warm, happy home. That dream was all he had until he woke up in Ajin's hospital ward. Ajin tells him to stay still because he's got severe pneumonia. Any later, and it would have been over. The old man's condition was truly critical. He panics about Toto being home alone, but Ajin assures him the monkey is in intensive care. They found him right on the market street where they had first met. Toto was in rough shape, fighting hypothermia for so long that he was nearly at death's door. Fortunately, the little hero is past the danger zone. But seriously, if they had found him any later, it would have been tragic. Overwhelmed by Ajin's mercy, the musician asks how he can ever repay someone for saving a beggar and his pet. He bows low, promising to work off his debt for the rest of his natural life. Ajin just tells him to relax. The priority isn't the money, it's getting back on his feet. He reminds the man that he needs to stay strong for Toto. Hearing those kind words, the old man can't stop the tears. A few days later, Pio drops some news. Lulu gave birth to a foal with golden fur. While working the farm, she says everyone is gossiping about this foal becoming a legendary horse for the ages. Then she mentions the whole town is buzzing about Duke Astrid's big birthday bash. Ajin's curious. What's so special about a Duke's birthday celebration anyway? All right, Pio mentions that Duke Astra is a massive fan of the arts. This means his annual birthday bash features the region's absolute best performances for everyone. There is even a chance they will get to see the golden horse. While Pio jealously wishes she could be invited, Adrian shows off an invitation, explaining he can bring 2 other members along for the ride. He offers a spot to Pio, leaving both her and Tors absolutely thrilled by the news. Suddenly, Ajin reveals a golden envelope that allows him to bring 4 companions with him. Jealous, Adrian wonders how Ajin managed to get one of those. He's the Duke's personal physician. Olas arrives pushing a cart and asks if the Duke is doing well these days. Owen worries about his health, reminding Olas that he hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. But the old man insists on helping out even a little. He reveals he performed at the Duke's place before, and hearing the name Astrid after so long brings back memories. Olas starts thinking back to those kind souls. Those music lovers paid him enough to buy his own house, thanks to the generous performance fees they gave. Everyone listening is genuinely moved. But then Owen asks why he stopped performing. Olas explains that Toto simply cannot perform anymore. Owen still believes Olas could have made a decent living as a solo musician. But Olas admits he tried that in his darkest times, receiving only harsh criticism for his lonely and terrible playing. Being kicked out of the Plaza Performance Hall finally sealed his fate for good. Back then, no matter how bad the music was, Toto always started dancing the moment Olas picked up his bow. He believed it was the monkey that the audience loved the most. So when Toto could no longer dance, Olas decided to put his violin away. He knows how much Toto loves that song. If he plays it now, the poor monkey would try to dance again. The thought of his friend being sad about having only one leg finalized his decision. Ajin pauses, and you know he's already got a plan. At the castle, Duke Astrid learns from a servant that Olas is still in the region. He is relieved the man stayed. He hopes to hear Olas play again, but the servant explains that the famous dancing monkey was badly injured and cannot perform. The Duke feels for Toto. However, he tells his men he preferred the music over the dancing anyway. He lacked flashy techniques, but there was something about his music that touched hearts, and the Duke truly wants to hear it once more. So he sends a messenger to invite Olas to perform at his birthday. Shocked by the invitation, Olas tries explaining Toto's current condition. But the messenger says the Duke already knows, and that a solo performance would be enough. They expect a yes, and will pay whatever price Olas asks. Pio immediately rejoices. She hopes he takes the deal, as that money could finally take Toto all the way back to their hometown. Sadly, Olas looks at the monkey before turning the offer down. But Ajin steps in, promising he can make sure Toto dances again. Stunned, Olas is skeptical. No matter Ajin's medical knowledge, creating a brand new leg out of thin air seems impossible. He questions him, and Ajin admits he can't actually regrow a limb. But dancing doesn't require a real leg. He simply tells Olas to trust him and leave it all to him. The Duke's birthday finally arrives, and Ajin is immediately swarmed by ladies praising his genius for spotting Lulu's pregnancy in an instant, and for heroically saving the Duchess from that deadly snake with his bare hands. Adrian is fuming nearby, since the rumors are wrong and he's the one who is actually involved in both cases. Once Marianne spots him in the crowd, she goes full mother hen, shielding him from the ladies and personally escorting him to his seat. As the Duke enters the hall, the guests erupt with birthday cheers and warm greetings, and he graciously thanks everyone for joining the celebration. The party officially kicks off as Olas is called to perform for the banquet. The crowd whispers as Olas appears, recognizing him as that market beggar. Seeing his one-legged monkey, they whisper that Lord Astra's compassion has gone way too far. As Olas lifts his bow and readies himself to play, his hands shake, but he steadies his heart, vowing to give his best performance for Toto's sake. The melody captivates everyone, and as Toto recognizes the familiar tune, he leaps down, finally giving Marianne a clear view of him. Shockingly, he stands straight up, and the crowd wonders how. Just look at that, he reveals his prosthetic, leaving them stunned by the metal foot. The Duchess immediately knows this is Ajin's doing. She sensed he was extraordinary during Lulu's case. She tells Astra that Ajin is known as the spirit of healing, rumored to have the power to bring dead animals back to life. Watching the monkey dance freely with that prosthetic, the Duchess instantly believes those wild rumors. Ajin is just relieved that Toto has fully adapted to the prosthetic, as his movements look so natural. He notes that sizing it without a 3D printer was tough, admitting the blacksmith is truly impressive. So he really deserves a fat bonus. Oles is in total disbelief while watching Toto dance around so freely. To him, it feels like they have finally returned to the happy times of the past. He sheds a tear while playing, thanking Ajin silently as the audience starts to weep as well. It is such a cheerful song, yet they can't explain why they are crying. Oles and Toto finally finish their beautiful performance, and the audience erupts in applause. The Duke even calls it the best performance he has ever seen, leaving Oles overjoyed. Following that incredible success, Oles receives a massive reward, and because of that, he and Toto finally set off for their dream hometown. Before they go, Ajin hands Oles the prosthetic blueprints, telling him to find a skilled blacksmith if any issues ever arise. And if he can't find one, he should contact Ajin immediately. Moved by Ajin's kindness, Oles bows through tears, vowing never to forget this for the rest of his life. Ajin is truly his savior. Back at the smart farm, Pio praises Ajin for not taking a single penny from Oles, noting that the prosthetics production must have cost him quite a fortune. We're left wondering if he's struggling with the recent expansion of the Mander barn. Selena tells her not to worry about that, which really gets Pio wondering about it. Ever since the Duke's massive birthday bash, Ajin's been flooded with customers begging for help to fix their pets' injured feet. One visiting noble even vows to give Ajin absolutely anything that he could ever want, promising anything from a grand castle to a beautiful woman to get his pet walking again. Because of this, Ajin's bank account stays healthy. Later that day, Ajin shivers from the intense cold and asks Selena when winter will finally end. She tells him it should be over, but in rare cases like this one, it will take 2 to 3 weeks. Later that evening, he brings firewood to the barn to light them up and protect his freezing mandrakes. But when he gets there, he hears a strange noise inside, and to his absolute shock, he sees animals hiding in the barn. Meanwhile, the elves reach the western forest of the Belmore region and notice the trail they were tracking just stops there. They wonder if the creature ran out of energy or finally found its target. So they decide to continue searching just to be safe. That night, Ajin screams after seeing all those animals, wondering if his barn is now Noah's Ark. He sees bats and snakes and tries to stop them from ruining his barn. Even the herbivores munch on his mandrakes as he struggles to stop them. Selena appears, cold and calm, explaining this is actually a common phenomenon in their fantasy world. Whenever weather gets harsh, wild animals barge into barns for shelter and even attack livestock or warehouses. In severe conditions, she warns Ajin that an entire year's worth of crops gets wiped out. He refuses to let that happen and shouts that he needs to chase them out. But since the weather is too cold, Ajin is too soft-hearted to let them suffer out there. So during his precious day off from working at the hospital, he does manual labor with Adrian, who's fuming that a noble has to suffer in the cold. He whines about getting his expensive coat stained. Selena, who is carrying a ton of chopped wood, tells him to move aside. When he sees a puddle right in front of her, he throws his precious coat on it to have her walk over it. And she does so stoically. So he grins while seeing that he was useful to her. Ajin simply observes from the sidelines and notes that Adrian is truly finished. Pio and the other staff also gave up their vacation to join in working day and night on making a wild animal shelter. They built the shelter well to prevent the wind from breaking in, even adding a magic heat regulator to ensure the animals are warm. Lastly, the workers added food so the animals won't stay hungry. And as they marvel at their completed work, lots of animals storm into the tents, and within 10 minutes they empty the food. Ajin then restocks their food generously. But in the next 30 minutes, they run out again. That's when he notices the animals queuing up to eat, and he realizes he'll go broke if they continue this way. Adrian makes fun of him by saying they'll empty the gold from the safe with the way things are progressing. But then Ajin agrees and says he'll start with Adrian's salary. Suddenly, Pio calls his attention and he notices a huge cart filled with supplies. From the note, they learn it is Marianne's method of contribution. Ajin is delighted. But then Pio informs him that Baron Belmore has also sent more supplies. Before they even realize it, wood and food start pouring in from the locals, until Ajin finally admits they have more than enough. With those supplies, they set up 2 more shelter tents, transforming the place into a full-scale rescue center. Max and his pack step up to guard the perimeter, keeping the grounds secure. Owen has them sit by the stove. He watches them with pride. He recalls his college days volunteering at an animal shelter. It was exhausting, backbreaking, and incredibly hard work. But eventually, the money just ran out. Back then, he was helpless. That was the moment he decided to become a veterinarian and open a sanctuary for animals with nowhere else to go. He explains to Selena that his dream never happened because the hospital he ran was on the verge of closing. Was it greed, or was he just not good enough? And stick with me here. Right as he was drowning in worry, he was suddenly summoned to this world. This world has been a journey. Finally, his dream is coming true. He tends to the animals. He knows he has to return home one day, but regardless, he is truly glad he came to this world. He bids the animals good night. The next morning is biting cold. As Ajin inspects the shelter, he spots Max hiding inside the large barrack. He heads over to investigate and runs into Selena, who joins him just as they discover a baby deer. Inside the tent, parts that aren't quite right, so after that, when everything is ready, inserting the right images and syncing the audio together, then we proceed to export the video for publishing. So this is the process that I create a complete video. Therefore, I really hope that the YouTube support team reconsiders their decision. Check if there are any mistakes anywhere to help us return to the program earning money from YouTube. I sincerely thank you.